Mosoma.
Hello, good morning. This is Tempo Afric TV's Beyond the Headline program, and I'm your host, Petros Haile. Today, we have an attorney, Kwame Osafa-Addo. Kwame Osafa-Addo's firm is a consumer rights law firm located in Campbell-Mithun Tower, downtown Minneapolis. The firm mainly specializes in debt collection, defense, and bankruptcy. The firm also helps victims of unlawful credit reporting, wrongful eviction, and other consumer law matters. Welcome, Kwame.
Thank you. Thank you.
How are you doing?
Doing good.
All right. Before we start asking you about the issues of debt collection and bankruptcy, do you mind telling us a little bit about your background? And I'll do the follow-up right after that.
Okay, so my name is Kwame. I'm originally from Ghana, West Africa. I came to warm Fargo Moorhead
Okay.
in 1997. I enrolled at Concordia College for my undergraduate, where I did computer science and business. And then after graduating, I moved to the Twin Cities. In the Twin Cities, I worked for numerous collection agencies. And during that time, I also started an import business where I used to import hot sauce from Ghana, and that I sold to the African shops in town.
Okay.
And then after doing that for a number of years, I went back into law school, where after graduating, I focused on consumer rights and bankruptcy based on my prior background, having to work with people that had problems with credit.
Okay. So you were both at both end of the business. You were a debt collector as well as you were a business distributor. So you combined both together, then you specialized on it, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's a good start. So your specialty is mainly debt collection, defense, and bankruptcy. So if we have to start with debt collection defense, what does that mean?
Well, typically, what happens is that people would have credit cards, or they'll have some other consumer credits, and there's a time where they can no longer continue making payments, so these debts end up in collections. Now, there's a process in which the debt collection industry is allowed to collect on that debt. Frequently, companies follow these rules, but once in a while, there are companies that try to skirt it. There are collection agencies that would call the debtor repeatedly, especially at their place of employment, just to try and harass them to pay this debt. Now, there are rules that prevent the collection agency from doing something like that. Okay, they are not supposed to be able to harass the debtor. There are ways in which they are supposed to be able to collect this money, and anytime they don't do that, I help the debtors prosecute companies that flout those laws.
Okay. On the same line, when you call and protect your client, are you also able to reduce the date, or what kind of deal do you usually make?
It all depends.
Oh, okay.
It all depends. If the law allows the debtor to sue for up to $1,000 for each infraction of the federal debt collections, the FDCPA. Okay. So anytime they flout that particular rule, they are able to sue for up to $1,000. Also, sometimes during the negotiations, like if you found that a company was liable for these infractions, the debtor is able to work out different arrangements, in situations like that.
Depending on the case. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's on a case-by-case basis.
How common is this problem among the African community?
I would discuss this from my perspective as a debt collector. So when I was a debt collector, there were quite a number of, immigrants that had these problems. They usually were very, very open to trying to resolve these problems. They were usually like stuck in between, like, a rock and a hard place. And so yeah, it is pretty common, but people just don't talk about it. It's something that
too personal.
Exactly, it's very, very personal for a lot of people. Yeah.
Well, I was in debt myself at one time, and actually this family business that we went all the way to bankruptcy because of the circumstance. It did not work. Not our fault, but the fault of some other issues not related. So I can understand when debt collectors continue harassing you, and the next best option is bankruptcy. So would you suggest that if one does not work that well, the second option would be bankruptcy?
Sometimes that's the only option available. And like you said, typically people don't get into these problems because they want to. It's not intentional. What I found is for most of my clients, it would either be like a divorce or a death in the family. Usually, one partner passes away, and then one partner is just straddled with all that debt, And there are some times when the income is just not enough to satisfy all the different creditors. And if that is the situation, then the law allows you to more or less hit the reset button to file for bankruptcy, to start the credit process all over again, so that it's like a way out of that particular predicament,
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a requirement to declare bankruptcy? Is there
well, so typically we do what we call a means test.
Okay.
And with that, we are able to figure out if you do qualify for bankruptcy or not. Typically, we try to see how much debt you have out there, how much assets you have out there, and if that's the best option for you. And if it is, then definitely, we can qualify using the means test. And if the means test says, you do qualify, then yeah, by all means, it's something we can help you with.
Again, it depends on the particular case.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The other question I have is you also do unlawful credit reporting. How does that relate to the two things you mentioned earlier?
To consumer rights.
Yeah.
So after law school, I wanted to do something that I knew about and something that was prevalent in the immigrant community as well. And one thing that I found out was that through the debt collections process, sometimes things are unlawfully reported onto the client's credit report, and this prevents them from purchasing a house or purchasing a vehicle. It has a lot of ramifications financially if something that is not supposed to be on there ends up on there, So in those situations, I help clients try and remove that erroneous information from their credit reports.
Oh, okay. You help them out. Okay, that's it.
Exactly.
As wrongful eviction?
Wrongful eviction is along the same lines. So in the state of Minnesota, if your landlord decided to place an eviction on you, so they just went in and filed for an eviction, you have to go and pay $345 to answer that particular eviction, even if their claims are purely frivolous. If you don't, then that stays on your credit report. Now, the only way to get that expunged, right, is if you can prove that there was something wrong in the evictions process, not the content of the eviction. So if the landlord said he burnt down the whole house, and that was erroneous, and somehow you didn't show up in court, and that showed up in your credit report, you still couldn't, it's still difficult to remove it because usually the expungement takes care of errors in the evictions process. You see what I'm saying? So it's very, very important that clients understand how important this is. If you're ever being evicted, it's very, very important that you respond immediately, you seek legal advice in situations like that, because I've had situations where some people had something like this on their reports. Now they're making a lot of money. They have children that want to move into certain neighborhoods, and this is sitting on their credit report, and it's really affecting the options that they get in terms of rentals. So it's very important that people take notice in case they're ever in a situation like that in the evictions process.
You see, again, I wanted to come back to the African community. For a person who was born and raised in this country, it would be easier to understand that the law is protecting them, because from day one they learned that this is for you kids. But for Africans, we came from a different culture, a different background, and we are not born and raised natural citizen here. So maybe there's a lot of hesitation to go through the legal process. Is there an advice that you have to encourage them to come and do that, consult a lawyer? You know what I'm saying?
Yes, there are resources available where you don't necessarily have to pay money. You can call the Volunteer Lawyers Network, downtown Minneapolis, or usually they have them in different counties. You can call your legal aid office. You can just Google free legal advice, evictions online, find out you can find like an 800 number to call, because those guys would usually, if they don't have the advice you need, they can at least point you in the right direction. But it's crucial, it's very, very important. Anytime you have, usually you have the eviction thing sticking on your door and you feel, something might not happen, they might never show up. No, it does happen. And, you have situations where people don't have a place to live. It's pretty serious. So if you're in that situation, please seek legal advice. If you don't have the funds for it, go online and try and find free legal advice.
Yes. There's a list of resources here that you put on your website, the United States Chamber of Commerce, United States Citizens and Immigration Service. Are this the legal institution that you seek advice to, or?
No, those are just free legal links to free legal advice that typically most people try to look up.
Yeah, okay.
So I just included on the website in case someone was looking for that type of information.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
And I know where your office is located, right in the middle of downtown.
Yep.
They call it Campbell Bethune Tower.
Mm-hmm.
It's 222 9th Street.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is.
And do you have phone number? Yep. Your phone number is 651-560-3247.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if they need some kind of advice, they can call that number.
Most definitely.
And they can also find you in the website. What was the website again? I'm sorry.
It's Kwame. So my first name Kwame.
Kwame, yeah.
Sorry. It's www.KWAME'S KWAMESLAW.com.
.com.
Uh-huh.
Okay. www.KWAMESLAW, which is KWAMESLAW.com. Okay. Is there anything that you wanted to give us in addition to the information we extracted from you?
Okay. Well, I'll say, since my audience is mostly an immigrant community, apart from green card, your credit report is the most important document out there, and it's very important that you control what ends up on that particular document. So if there's anything that could potentially show up on there that could potentially be negative, try to talk to someone that knows about that. Either try to call an attorney or try to seek free legal advice online.
Online, yeah.
Yeah.
And do you give out free advice, or is there a process?
Yeah,
if they want
typically-
to come to you. Okay.
Typically, you can call me. I'll give you a free 30-minute consultation on the phone.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, it's KWAMESLAW.com, which is www. And the telephone is, direct phone is 651-560-3247. Thank you, Kwame, for coming and letting us, briefing us on this issue, particularly on debt collection, defense, and bankruptcy. And the coming days, we'll call you again for further legal advice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Hello. On that note, we end our today's program. We'll see you with the different guests next week. Until then, have a nice one. Thank you.
I was so nervous in the beginning, man.
Mosoma. Tangativo, ongu satanga, neusama kosa. Alumuna, sisi au, yasama kosa. Amuna yeye.